Hi, my name's Claire Bickle and I'm here today on behalf of Blooming in Brisbane to have a little bit of a chat and a look at the beautiful garden of Jim and Jan Flanagan in the western suburbs of Brisbane. We've also got Bella joining us today, which is lovely. Now, Jan, what I'd like to ask you is, what was your inspiration for starting this garden? Were there any things that really inspired you when you were designing and planning what you were going to plant where?
I think the kids left home, and that left a gap in my life. So I guess that was the catalyst for starting the garden. And then we went on a wonderful trip overseas and we visited the Bouchard Gardens, and that just blew me away.
Yep.
So I had tried gardening and I had a lot of failures here. And I thought, well, if Mrs. Bouchard can do it, I'd have to try a lot harder. So I came back and started. Yeah.
And were there particular aspects of that garden that you thought, I just have to replicate that here, or?
Yes, I love that she had different parts to her garden, and that it flowed and you could amble through the garden.
Okay,
and
so sort of rooms that linked.
yes.
And sounds lovely, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So it's a bit of a journey to go through your garden.
Yes, different plants
Yes,
from Canada, but the same idea.
Same philosophies.
Yeah.
With your garden, it's 2 acres of garden.
Yes, it is.
Do you have a favourite section, or is that too hard a question?
I don't. I really do love it all. And what I've tried to do is have something blooming all year.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's different at different times of the year, and I really do love it all.
Because I've noticed there's a lot of beautiful salvias throughout the garden, but it's also mixed quite successfully with tropical plants, natives. You've done a really good job of having that lovely eclectic mix of obviously plants that you're
exactly
passionate about.
I don't think you can have flowers all year round, so I've tried to have different forms of flowers, foliage and plant forms, to create different aspects. And I'm always trying plants. I am a plantaholic. I'm always on the lookout for new plants and trialing different plants, and I've found that we can grow quite a wide variety of plants, from tropical to subtropical and Mediterranean here.
Because we're a bit west of Brisbane, so there's a bit less humidity.
Bit cooler in winter. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And speaking of climate and weather, how do you fare when we have, for example, the floods probably didn't affect you out here so much, but
No.
do you ever have any trouble with excessive rain or the extended periods of drought? How do you combat dealing with those sorts of things?
We've had to put in drainage, a lot of drainage in the paths to get the water away. We have 13 water tanks.
Okay, yep.
Which is gives us 223,000 litres of water.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we need that, and that's actually 3 months' supply. So that gives us enough water during the drought periods. Other than that, I just water to keep things alive.
Yeah.
And subtropical, tropical, and Mediterranean plants do expect a dry period.
Yeah.
And so they don't die on you like the magnolias and azaleas that like the moister ground. Yeah.
They'll cope with that a bit better.
Yeah.
Now, if you were going to be talking to somebody who was just starting out, what would be some of your top tips or some of the best advice you would give someone who's just basically starting a new garden and is only new to planting and so forth?
Join a garden club.
Join a garden club, that's a very good, yep.
I belong to 3, and I think that's particularly one in your area, because you can see the plants that are growing. Visit gardens, because you can see. I am always visiting gardens, and I'm always amazed at, wow, somebody's growing it better than I can.
Really.
Absolutely. And why is it doing well? What situation it's in? And I move some of my plants to so that they can grow better. So definitely join a garden club and visit gardens.
And get out there and see local gardens.
Absolutely.
That are open.
Read books. Yeah.
Read books, yes, that's probably a good thing.
I like to know where a plant comes from, what country, and where in that country. Is it up a hill or down in a moist gully?
That can make a big difference, can't it?
Absolutely.
Between success and failure, understanding the cultural habits of a plant, where they've initially originated from.
Exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes you can see plants that are on your wish list, but they're not always going to be
Yeah.
success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, you've been opening your garden to the public for how many years?
10 years. This
10
is our
years.
10th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when is that going to be open this year?
On the 3rd and 4th of May.
Okay.
Yep.
And 10 till 4?
9 till. We open a bit earlier. We
Okay.
found some people like to get up early and into
Okay.
the garden. So from 9 till 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what can people expect on the day?
Okay, the Red Cross, we open for the Australian Red Cross, the Ipswich branch, and they come and provide meals on the day, light meals and light refreshments. We have plants. Some of my garden club ladies come and sell their plants, which come from the area. They
Yeah.
grow in the gardens in the area. We also have honey that we sell,
nice.
that we have our own bees on our property. And Jim and I are on hand to answer any questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
lovely. So in saying that you've got honey, are there any other features in your garden? What are some of the main features then? So you've obviously got a lot of plants to look at and the
Yes.
design.
Yeah.
What are some of the main features? And so you've obviously got beehives as well.
We have, and they love the Dumbaya trees,
Oh,
and
no.
I love the Dumbaya, so I grow trees for the bees. The features are we've got ponds, gravel garden, 2 rose gardens, succulent gardens. I just like a mix of everything. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and lovely sandstone I can see all around us here as well. That's quite a
Yes.
feature.
Yeah, I realised that I had to have the gardens raised. We couldn't dig, there's rock just below the surface. So what to border the gardens with, and we'd just done a retaining wall in Helidon sandstone, and that was it. I fell in love with that.
Yep.
And so that's what we stayed with, the Helidon sandstone, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So there's lots to see on the day then, and lots of
Absolutely.
inspiration.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your garden with us. I think we're going to go for a little bit of a walk now and
Lovely.
have a look at all these different beautiful sections.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
We're here now in another very special part of the garden. This is the olive grove garden, and also behind us we have the beautiful terracing sloping garden. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the olive grove? And also there's a very special structure behind us here you might like to tell us a bit about.
Yes, Claire. In 2000, I planted 36 olive trees here, and this was the olive grove. We put in the paths and prepared everything, and then about 4 years ago, I decided that it was looking a bit bare, so I decided to start planting, but it had to be dry planting because there's no irrigation here at all. I just hand water everything in, and then they're on their own, so they have to be tough and accept the dryness. So I've planted natives and frangipanis, crepe myrtles and succulents, of course. And yes, in terraces, so I've had to retain some soil, put some soil in, and a little bit of mulch, loose mulch, and it's just starting. So it's a continuing,
An ongoing project.
Exactly. The little gazebo, Jim and I visited Nauru in Mount Wilson, Peter Valder's home many years ago, and just loved the property. And a little gazebo was built there very similar to this. So this is a reminder to us. And Jim has built lots of seating areas and gazebos around the place. He's a builder. And so he's made the garden just as much with his structures, including the lovely old fence.
So you've made a good combination, gardener and builder.
Exactly. Yeah, so we've complemented each other.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, Jan, here we are now in your wisteria and orchid courtyard. What can you tell me about this fantastic space, and what are some of the things that you've realised in all your years of gardening here that you've worked out quite well with your orchids?
Right. Well, first of all, I really wanted wisterias and begged my husband, and he said, well, if you're going to have wisterias, you've got to have a very strong structure. So he ordered all these steel beams, and then once the wisteria started to grow, I realised that it would be perfect with the beams for my orchids that were in bush houses. So I bought 1 or 2, and they had never flowered in the bush house before. So I bought out 1 or 2, and all of a sudden they started flowering, and then I bought all of the orchids out, and I discovered that it was just perfect because, of course, the wisteria loses its leaves in winter and they get all the winter sun but by summer the leaf is back and they have the shade in summer. So it's just a perfect environment
Location.
and location for the orchids. Yeah, as you can see, the cattleyas here. Soft canes which flower in the springtime, and many other types of orchids. They get the air movement and the right amount of sunshine.
And that's something you're passionate about too, isn't it? Sort of getting orchids out of that sort of idea that they must be kept in bush houses and greenhouses and mollycoddled, and try and get some of the harder varieties. You've actually trying to get them out into the garden as well.
Exactly. And in nature, that's how they grow. They're epiphytic and they grow on trees. And yes, I've put them out into the garden as well as the courtyard.
Fantastic.
Yes.
It's a beautiful spot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for having us come along today and sharing your garden with us. We really enjoyed it. Hopefully the general public will also be able to come along and enjoy this garden on the 3rd and 4th of May. And hopefully also next week you can come along and join us at Blooming in Brisbane, where we go and have a look at another fabulous garden, a sustainable urban paradise called Spurtopia. And we'll see you then.
For more information on Blooming in Brisbane, visit us on Facebook.